Hey y'all, what's up, man? This is your boy, God's chosen one, man. We will continue in the great book of Genesis. We're on chapter 15, I believe. No, chapter 14. I'm sorry. We're in chapter 14 of the great book of Genesis. All right, so we gotta remember that Lot and Abram are parting ways, and Lot took Sodom, and Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan. Chapter 14. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel. See, Nimrod has a lot of names. Osiris, Amraphel, king of Shinar. We read about that in Jasher chapter 11, verse 6. And we'll get to that. Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations. Also in Jasher 13:13. That these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. Okay. And all these were joined together in the vale of Sodom, which is the salt sea. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaims, who were giants, and Ashtaroth Karnaim, and the Zuzims, and Ham, and the Emines, and Seva Kirithaim, which are all giants. And the Horites in their Mount Seir. So we have a relationship between the Horites and the Edomites, which is by wilderness. And they returned and came to En Mishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, who were also giants, and also the Amorites that dwelt in Hazazon Tamar. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the same as Zoar. And they joined battle with them in the vale of Chittim, when with Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and with Tidal, king of nations, and Amraphel, king of Shinar. There's Amraphel again, Nimrod, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar. 4 kings with 5. And the vale of Sodom was full of slime pits, and the king of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there. And they that remained fled to the mountain, and they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their victuals, and went their way. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. And there came one that had escaped, and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, and brother of Anar, and these were confederate with Abram. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. And he divided himself against them, he and his servants by night, and smote them, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him, after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him at the valley of Seva, which is the king's dale. And Melchizedek, who is not, people say Jesus, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High Almighty. And see, a lot of Christians say that's Jesus, not. And we'll come to find out that Melchizedek is Shem. And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High, the Almighty, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be the Most High, the Elohim, which have delivered thy enemies into thy hand. And he gave him tithes of all. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, Give me the persons, and take the goods to thyself. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up my hand unto Yah, the Most High, the Elohim, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldst say, I have made Abram rich, save only that which the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men which went with me, and near Eshcol and Mamre, let them take their portion. And so Abram knew of the Sodomites and the Gomorrites corruption. You know, you'll read that in Jasher 18 and 19, 18 and chapter 19 too. So Abram knew of this. Now we're going to read in Jasher. I think we'll be in chapter 16, but we're going to start with Jasher 11 verse 6 first, to give you a little bit of understanding on some things real fast. Okay, Jasher chapter 11 verse 6. And Nimrod dwelt in Babel, and he there renewed his reign over the rest of his subjects. And he reigned securely, and the subjects and princes of Nimrod called his name Amraphel. So there we have it. All right. Saying that at the tower his princes and men fell through his means. Okay. All right. Hold on here. All right. Try to get this right real fast. All right. Yeah, that's right. So, you know, his name was Amraphel. Okay. So that's Amraphel. So that's Genesis chapter 14 verse 1. We see his name is Amraphel. We also can look at let's see, verse 13. Hold on here. And this is 13. I can't read my own writing here. 1 second. Hold on with me. Yeah. Chapter 13. For Chedorlaomer was at that time one of the princes of the hosts of Nimrod. And when all the people at the tower were dispersed, and those that remained were all scattered upon the face of the earth, Chedorlaomer went to the land of Elam and reigned over it and rebelled against his Lord. Okay. So you got to kind of read this whole story right here. So let me kind of read this. So we're in and I think I've read this before, but I'm going to read it again. So you got to understand how, you know, how Nimrod is not ruling everything. Jasher 13 verse 14. And in those days when Nimrod saw that the cities of the plain had rebelled, he came with pride and anger to war with Chedorlaomer. And Nimrod assembled all his princes and subjects, about 700,000 men, and went against Chedorlaomer. And Chedorlaomer went out to meet with him 5,000 men. And they prepared for battle in the valley of Babel, which is between Elam and Shinar. And all those kings fought there, and Nimrod and his people were smitten before the people of Chedorlaomer, and there fell from Nimrod's men about 600,000, and Mardon, the king's son, fell amongst them. And Nimrod fled and returned in shame and disgrace to his land, and he was under subjection to Chedorlaomer for a long time. And Chedorlaomer returned to his land and sent princes of his host to the kings that dwelt around him, to Arioch, king of Elasar, and to Tidal, king of Goyim, and made a covenant with them, and they were all obedient to his commands. So there you see, what Genesis 14:1 is talking about, these people right here, okay? All right. Let me see if I'm done with that. Okay. All right. So getting back to Jasher chapter 11, verse 1 through 3. All right. So that's the fall of Babel, right? Well, no. And Nimrod, son of Cush, was still in the land of Shinar, and he reigned over and dwelt there, and he built cities in the land of Shinar. And these are the names of the 4 cities which he built, and he called their names at the occurrence that happened to them in the building of the tower. And he called the first Babel, saying, because Yah there confounded the language of the whole earth. And the name of the second he called Eric, because from there the Most High dispersed them. And the third he called Echad, saying that there was a great battle at the place. And the fourth he called Calna, because his princes and mighty men were consumed there, and they vexed Yah. They rebelled and transgressed against him. And when Nimrod had built these cities in the land of Shinar, he placed in them the remainder of his people, his princes, and his mighty men that were left in the kingdom. All right. So, let's continue reading. And notwithstanding, Nimrod did not return to Yah, even though he had fallen. All right. And he continued in wickedness and teaching wickedness to the sons of men. And Mardon, his son, was worse than his father, and continued to add to the abomination of his father. And he caused the sons of men to sin. Therefore it is said, from the wicked go forth the wicked. And at that time was war. Okay, I already read that. All right. So let's continue. Jasher. Now let's go to Jasher chapter 16. Okay. Jasher chapter 16. Verse. All right. So I've already read. Oh no, we'll start with verse. All right, let's start with verse 1. Well, we already read that about Shalimar, being over Nimrod and all of them. So we'll go to verse 5. And the valley of Sodom was full of slime pits, which we read in Genesis 14:10 through 11. And the kings of Elam pursued the kings of Sodom, and the kings of Sodom with their camps fled and fell into the slime pits. And all that remained went to the mountain for safety. And the 5 kings of Elam came after them and pursued them to the gates of Sodom. And they took all that there was in Sodom. And they plundered all the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And they also took Lot, Abram's brother's son, and his property. And they seized all the goods of the cities of Sodom. And they went away. And Eunuch, Abram's servant, who was in the battle, saw this, and told Abram all that the kings had done to the cities of Sodom, and that Lot was taken captive by them. And Abram heard this, and he rose up with about 318 men and that were with him. And he that night pursued these kings and smote them, and they all fell before Abram and his men. And there were none remaining but the 4 kings who fled, and they went each his own road. That's in Genesis 14:14. And Abram recovered all the property of Sodom, and he also recovered Lot and his property, his wives and little ones, and all belonging to him, so that Lot lacked nothing. So that's in Genesis 14:16. And when he returned from smiting the kings, he and his men passed the valley of Sodom, where the kings had made war together. Read that in Genesis, what we just read in 14. And Bera, king of Sodom, and the rest of his men that were with him went out from the slime pits into which they had fallen to meet Abram and his men. And Adonizedek, or you call him Melchizedek, king of Jerusalem, the same was Shem. So now we know who Melchizedek is. That's Shem. It's not Jesus. It's Shem. Went out with his men to meet Abram and his people with bread and wine, and they remained together in the valley of Melech. And you call him Melchizedek, or Adonizedek, blessed Abram. And Abram gave him a tenth from all that he had brought from the spoil of his enemies, for Adonizedek was a priest before the Almighty. That's in Genesis 14:18. They call him Melchizedek in the Bible, but it's Adonizedek. And all the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah who were there with their servants approached Abram and begged of him to return them their servants whom he had made captive, and to take unto himself all the property. That's in Genesis 14:21. And Abram answered the kings of Sodom, saying, As Yah liveth, who created heaven and earth, and who redeemed my soul from all affliction, and who delivered me this day from my enemies, and gave them into my hand, I will not take anything belonging to you, that you may not boast tomorrow, saying, Abram became rich from our property that he saved. So that's in Genesis 14:22-24. For Yah, my Almighty, in whom I trust, said unto me, Thou shalt lack nothing, for I will bless thee in all the works of thy hands. And now, therefore, behold, here is all belonging to you. Take it and go. As Yah liveth, I will not take from you from a living soul down to a shoe tie or a thread, accepting the expense of the food of those who went out with me to battle, as also the portions of the men who went with me, Anar, Ashcal, and Mamre, they and their men, as well as those also who had remained to watch the baggage, they shall take their portion of the spoil. And the kings of Sodom gave Abram according to all that he had said, and they pressed him to take whatever he chose, but he would not. So they trying to entice Abram to take more from him, because he knew how wicked these people from Sodom and Gomorrah were. And he sent away the kings of Sodom and the remainder of their men, and he gave them orders about Lot. And they went to their respective places. And Lot, his brother's son, he also sent away with his property, and he went with them. And Lot returned to his home to Sodom, and Abram and his people returned to their home to the plains of Mamre, which is in Hebron. Okay? At that time, okay, I think we're gonna stop right there. Yeah, I think we stop right there. All right. So, as you can see from this chapter right here, that Abram was a general, man. He went out to make with these kings of Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Sorry about that. With these kings of Egypt. Yah was with him.